On Mount Ararat, at 4,500 meters, on the bottom of a huge rock crevice, is present a building-type structure, visibly artificial and resembling a ship-type vessel, appearing to be thousands of years old. Because of the area where it is present, and at such a high elevation, it could be the long-searched Noah's Ark. The ship appears to have everything of the little we read of Noah's Ark in Genesis chapter 6, except one detail, its most important detail, that alone would prove it to be Noah's Ark. This because the Bible does not give any description of what Noah's Ark looked like, if it being a ship-type vessel, or a giant boat-type vessel, or what was its shape. The measures of this building-type structure, resembling a ship, from what we read in Genesis chapter 6 verse 15, and from what till this day has been understood of the ship's measures in verse 15, would prove that this ship is Noah's Ark. But there is a mystery about the ship in these images, and that mystery is in its measures. From what we read of those measures in Genesis chapter 6 verse 15, and from what till this day has been understood by just about everyone to be the ship's measures, from one end to the other, from side to side, and from bottom to top, the ship in these images appears much bigger. Genesis chapter 6 KJV, verse 15. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. The method of measurements that we read in verse 15 is that of the cubit. There are several ancient versions of cubit measuring. We do not know what cubit measuring Noah used to build his ship, but the differences between each cubit method of measuring is that of only a few centimeters. The overall measures of the ship would be that of a few meters differences. Its length up to 10 meters or less as a difference, its width a couple of meters, its height probably a meter or less. The problem in the measures of this ship, and especially that of its length, is not that of 10 meters. The length of this ship in these images would have it almost double that length we read in verse 15. According to many Bible scholars, and what apparently has been understood till this day by just about everyone, of what are those measures written in verse 15. The ship's measures in cubit, translated in meters, has the following measures. The ship was round 144 meters long, 24 meters wide, and 14 meters tall. Others estimated its size in 134 meters length, 22 meters width, 13 meters height. This according to what cubit measuring one is using. Do we have these measures in this ship? Yes, no, and not even close. What is the length of the ship in these images? From the Google Earth measuring tool in meters, the ship measured in its length, beginning from its rear to what appears as the tip of its front side. The length is that of something like 190 meters. 190 meters is an enormous difference from that 144 meters length of the ship's length of verse 15. 190 meters length of this ship is more than enough reason to doubt if this ship is Noah's Ark. But the length of the ship does not end here. 190 meters length, without including this area that appears as a piece of the ship standing above the ship over the rock wall of the cavern at its right side. Including this piece of the ship, another 20 meters is added to that 190 meters length, and now the length is 210 meters length. But still the length does not end at 210 meters. There is also this area of the ship's front side at 4,800 meters, mostly buried in ice. That length is of something like 50 meters, but it appears as a piece of the front side that came off from the top decks. Because of its arch-type shape that we also have at 4,500 meters, maybe not 50 meters added to that 210 meters, but at least a few meters more added. But still the length does not end here. There is also this section that appears as a piece of the ship at 4,500 meters next to the ship's rear, mostly buried in ice. If this were to be another piece of the ship, then we must add another 20 or more meters, and we would have a length of the ship of at least 230 meters. Around twice the length of that length we read in Genesis chapter 6 verse 15, and only 40 meters less in length from the Titanic. Ship's width. Do we have a 24 meters width? If we were to measure its width from this arch-type area at its widest area, we have measures of something like 20 meters. That's between 2 or 4 meters less than the ship's width from Genesis chapter 6 verse 15, from what just about everyone is understanding of that width in verse 15. But then we must take notice that the ship suffered most of its damage at its right side hull, and that much of the ship's right side is in that debris field above that cavern's entrance at 4,600 meters. Most of the ship's right side hull is this wall-type building at 4,600 meters. From my measures, at least 80 meters of the ship's right side hull is at 4,600 meters, and it came off from the ship when the ship fell from 4,800 meters to 4,600 meters in this cavern. Those 2 or 4 meters differences in width could be its right side hull above at 4,600 meters and among that debris. This section here is only 10 meters width, but this shows how much damage the ship suffered when it fell from 4,800 meters to 4,600 meters, falling in this cavern, where in much of that debris at 4,600 meters could lay half of the ship in its width. This rectangular-shaped building, appearing as an oblong box, has multiple widths. At its rear area we have 24 meters, which is those meters of its width from what everyone till this day has been understanding of those widths in verse 15. But then we have 18 meters, 10 meters, 7 meters, 5 meters. But as I said before, the ship suffered most of its damage at its right side hull, where most of its width was that depressed at 4,600 meters. So we have widths that are those 24 meters width, from what just about everyone till this day has been understanding of the width of Noah's ship, from verse 15. But then the widths decrease, because something like almost half of the ship appears to be that debris at 4,600 meters. The height, 14 meters tall or a meter less, from what everyone till this day is understanding of the ship's height, from verse 15. Most of the ship is this rectangular shape type building, which makes about 70% of the ship, from its front side to the area where its floors are visible. It is not possible to measure its height, because this area is still partially buried in ice. The area of the ship where some measures of the ship's height could be measured is this cargo-type rectangular shaped building, which makes about 70% of the ship. From its rear section, the ship is around 35 meters height. But from this section, detached, standing above and over the rock at the ship's right, we have something like 14 meters height. We have multiple heights of this rectangular shaped area from those 14 meters that just about everyone till this day has been understanding of verse 15 of the ship's height. But then we also have heights up to 35 meters. The ship's height of up to 35 meters would have it around half the height of the Titanic. There is also another problem in measuring the ship in these images, that there could be areas of the ship, especially at its cargo-type shaped building section, that appear as if the width could be its height. The ship at 4,500 meters appears twisted and broken. In this case, one believing to be measuring its height is instead measuring its width, or confusing the width for its height. But the overall measures of the ship in these images is of a ship that has measures much bigger than those measures we see written in verse 15, and from what till today just about everyone is understanding of those measures in verse 15. So is this ship Noah's Ark? When it comes to the measures, apparently it is not Noah's Ark, from what everyone till this day is understanding of verse 15 of those ship's measures. What just about everyone is not understanding of verse 15 is that those measures of the ship in verse 15 are not of the ship from one end to the other, from one side to the other, and from bottom to top. Those measures in verse 15 are referring to an area of the ship, a cut. This will be for part 3.